Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you're playing characters Mannix, Kaless, Gillian, George, or Theron, this is not meant for you. Too many spoilers, too much information, but for the rest of you, welcome. Stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session recaps at RogueWatson.com. If you'd like to support the channel, check out Patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shout out to Platinum patrons Andrew, Brian, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Crazy Pat, and Nick. And Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos David Vicente, Gilberto, Sean, aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. I'm excited to finally move on from the Typhoon Palace dungeon, which I have been covering for like weeks and weeks and weeks now. I do like being in the middle of a dungeon. It makes planning and prepping so much easier to do, but definitely ready for that one to be done with. I think because we spent 3 solid sessions here, and then we also took like a week off maybe beforehand, and then I also prepped it like at the end of Jahaka Anchor. So I think I ended up with like 5 weeks of preps for one area, which is pretty crazy. Hello, Blanky and Cert. Glad you guys could make it. So we can recap kind of what happened at the end of Typhoon Palace, and then I can finally start building something else. At the top of this session, I do have some unfortunate news, and that is we are entering, well, we're in the middle of summer, and people are on summer vacation. So it's looking like, as of right now, I do not believe we're going to have a D&D session this week at all. And then next week, we are not going to have a regular session, but instead we are going to have a one-off. Because half our D&D group, the Herrings, are going to go on a big week-long vacation, so they're just not going to be here. And the nice thing is we completed the Typhoon Palace, so we are in between areas, so that part's kind of good timing for a little bit of a hiatus, so I'm very glad that we got to wrap things up last week. I think, and then my wife's actually on a business trip right now, so just kind of the way it lined up, I don't think we're going to have a session this week at all. What I may do, though, is still go live on Friday night and maybe play some Gloomhaven or something, just to try to, you know, be there. So we're not just skipping a week. I think that could be fun. And by Gloomhaven, I mean either do the Steam version or do our little tabletop simulator campaign and actually have maybe like Chris and Heather and those get on and play together. So it'll be like a mini, D&D gathering. The week after, so next Friday, I have been trying to talk to my wife about maybe doing some DMing, because I think she could be really good at it. She likes playing anti-heroes like in every single campaign, so I think she could have a really fun DM flavoring. And she has expressed interest in doing that, as with not doing a one-shot, but instead doing a like side trek with our current character. So we're in a unique situation where we're on a boat, we're going from one location to another, and I don't really have any kind of events or things planned between those locations. So I think this will be fill that air slot. This would be a good excuse to just have like a literally just random like episode filler kind of content, but still hopefully be really fun and enjoyable, and a fun way for her to kind of flex those DM skills. So we've had Chris be DM previously a couple times, as well as doing obviously our entire Storm King's Thunder campaign, which is amazing, and I'm excited to see what she can do. She's actually on a business trip right now, and she called me and says she's excited working on the notes for it. So I think it'll just be kind of a fun experience for everybody. We'll still only have like half the D&D group. That's why we're doing kind of the what did you call that? I guess it's not a one shot, because it's still our main campaign characters, but it's just I just guess DM, I guess. And then what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put a poll on the Patreon page for patrons to vote on which character I play for that episode, because I figured that since obviously I'm the DM, I don't have a character to play, but there are several NPCs aboard that ship that I could play for the purposes of the adventure. So there's like Roka, the Zentarum kind of pirate guy. There's the 2 dwarf guides out of Port Nines Outer that they have, Hugh Hackenstone and Musharib. There's the captain of the Brazen Pegasus, Captain Ordame, although I think that they may be on different ships now, so we'll have to kind of coordinate that. But I think that could be a fun excuse to kind of let let the fans kind of decide which one they want to see me embody, and that'll be kind of a fun exercise for me. So that's what we're looking at for next week, and then hopefully the week after that we're gonna get back to normal. Unfortunately, at some point, let's see, what is that? So that would be so this week, no D&D. Next week, August 2nd, will be that special episode, which will feature our D&D characters with a guest DM and like half the crew. So technically we're doing D&D, but it'll be a bit of an asterisk on that one. And then after that should be normal on the 9th. And then the week after that, I'm on vacation all week. Heather and I, and we're going on a family vacation. I have not determined if we'll be able to do... We are actually going on the week and not on... You all wanted to hear my schedule for this whole episode, right? We are going to be back like Thursday, so I could technically still do D&D on Friday, but it just depends on how much like prep work I have. So I'd like to still do it, but that's the tentative plan right now. I try to keep everybody updated on what's going on. Obviously, I very much pride myself and our group on being able to get together every week, so doing too many days off definitely does not sit well with me. So I'm hoping that we can have the rest of August play out normally and then be good to go from there. All right, so that is the current scheduling. So, I guess we need to switch to this dungeon for the last time. As much as I like it, I'm now kind of sick of looking at it. So, I spent so long, so many hours, just anxiously hand-wringing over this crusher trap that was basically an instant kill. It was like an 8d10 damage. Literally several sessions I mentioned, holy crap, what if somebody steps in here and sets it off? It's basically just going to kill somebody. But I think it was balanced by the fact that I very obviously telegraphed how dangerous this was. You put a bunch of bloodstains on the floor, scratch marks that Mannix saw, and Mannix is all about seeing danger. He's very much the attentive investigator, which is a good character to have in a dungeon. Not a great character to have in a fight, as we discover, but a good character to have in a dungeon. And they did it perfectly right. Like they treated it with respect. They knew how to kind of solve the problems. I was pretty forthcoming about the holy symbols being the key to the dungeon. Not everybody had one, but as you recall, I believe I even mentioned this in last week's Crafting Annihilation, that the players could very well solve this puzzle by simply doing the equivalent of tossing those holy symbols across the room and just letting people wear them on the way back and forth, and I'm going to let them. Like, that's perfectly fine. That's a valid way of solving that puzzle. They use like Mage Hand in this case, I think, but nobody even tried to, everybody treated this puzzle with respect, so I respected all the players doing it. And I think that's my general philosophy. I just don't like the bullshit gotcha traps. Ambushing enemies is kind of different because obviously the players get a chance, and I actually really like ambushing enemies because it gives the enemies a huge power boost when you get that free round off. But with traps, I guess occasionally you can do something like that, but in the case of like Celeste walking through the glyph, but if it's a really devastating, awful one, I do feel like it feels better if it's a choice the players make or a roll that the players fail, and that feels less gotcha from the DM and more like the player going, oh, damn it, and it's more of a consequence of their actions rather than just cruel luck that they happen to stumble into something. So in this case, it was very heavily telegraphed. They saw everything, and they did everything exactly right, so I liked that. As you also probably can tell from the watching the previous episode, I very much tried to get the players to remain separated and start opening the chests and doing all that, but the players had none of it. They immediately wanted to join up forces quickly and get in this room, so I did not unleash... So my hope was that I could unleash the mimic fight with them still separated, and that would create the dramatic tension of them having to cross this trap to help the others. But, again, the players were very cautious and smart and decided to join up first before even touching this room of loot, which I was very impressed with. You think they'd be all about starting to loot everything, but in fact, it wasn't the case. So they all got in this room before they started looting. And I awkwardly had to... There's a funny moment where I believe the players said, like, oh yeah, let's start looking at this loot. And then I, as the DM, have to say, like, well, who's opening what loot? And that immediately, and if I was a player, I'd feel the same way, telegraphs to the players, oh, so opening these chests matters, does it? Why is that? Because you've got traps set up, because something going on. So unfortunately, there was no. I couldn't think of a clever way of deciding which player was going to get attacked, other than just asking them who is specifically like opening these chests and ripping them open. Which Celeste was pretty funny about. Like, I open the chest. No, wait, no, I don't want to touch anything because everything in here is bad. Which she was correct about that. So instead, I got to unleash an attack on George, and I believe I hit him pretty hard. So mimics, first time using mimics, and I hit really, really well with the bite attack. Once, because I got advantage on them once they were adhered, but then I don't think I ever hit with the frickin' pseudo. I'd still a +5, so it's just the luck of the draw that I kept hitting with the bite. But for whatever reason, I wasn't able to actually nail down the pseudopod very often. So, other than that initial attack on George, and then I think maybe I did hit Kales once, they weren't too bad. And all the players were there, so it wasn't nearly as difficult as I might have been expecting, because they were all there, all immediately able to attack and defeat these mimics, which have not a whole lot of armor class, a decent amount of hit points, but again, when there's 2 mimics versus 5 party members, they're not going to last very long. So, just kind of a funny surprise to hit them with. And then I gave them a shit ton of loot. They got a bunch of neat items. Pretty much the entire wealth of the dungeon is in this one area, as well as a cool set of magical bagpipes for Gillian, which was really, really fun. I really like giving the players neat magical items that is like tailored to their characters. And as I mentioned before, one of the things I want to do with all of their personal quests, and this one is very much pursuing Gillian's personal quest, is to reward them with personalized magic items. In this case, Gillian actually basically got 2. She got her special magical instrument here, which had a bunch of spells she could cast that were themed around like the sea and the storms, as well as later on when she got to talk to her ghost brother and actually receive her brother as a magic item, which was insanely hysterical, and hopefully we can keep up with that fact. The statue, I added that, and I believe we talked about this in Crafting Annihilation, where I did not want the players, I kind of had to gate them right here. I didn't want the players to just open this door and continue on. They had to talk to the ghost first. So I had it where the ghost gave them the password they needed to open the door. So they still felt like the statue was magical, and obviously Manic says Detect Magic available, but they weren't able to do anything until they went south into this door here. Catch up on the chat for a second. Killed a member of my party. They weren't happy when they found out being reduced to 0 equals death. Yeah, it is a literal, like, you are a pulpy mass when you're killed by it. You gotta respect the bloodstains, man. That is a well-telegraphed trap. And yeah, I don't think any player expects a trap to be that deadly. You know, you get attacked by traps, and you're like, the deadliest one you might come across in your adventuring career does like half your health, which is very scary. But to have one do like your entire health and then instant kill you seems real fucking bad. The players that activate don't have them roll percentage or investigation. Let them roll to see what happens. Oh, that's interesting. Give them another chance. That's even something that sounds like I would do too. Give them like another chance, even if they activate the trap. You let them roll. The crush skeleton. Yeah. I mean, that's what you can do. You can telegraph it, and then if the players make bad choices, then they kind of have to live with those consequences. So down here, and I mentioned before, I probably wasn't going to use the Rug of Smothering, and in this case, I definitely didn't. I thought the mimics had done a decent amount of damage. In fact, I believe they short rested for the 3rd time after this mimic fight. And once you've got 3 short rests and have used all your hit dice, at that point I feel like I've done a pretty damn good job of draining the party's resources. And honestly, the rug thing would have just been it kind of would have been the mimic thing, where it's just, you get that initial hit off, and you enter initiative, and it's just kind of a laborious process of everybody just beats on this stupid rug, and then probably the person who rolled last on initiative doesn't even get to go. So at that point, it's basically just a trap that takes longer than a trap. So I ended up skipping this thing, which I figured I would anyway. The ghost thing was pretty good, I thought. I ended up not using actually art or a token for it. Just, I don't know, I was lazy. I probably could have found Google image searched a ghost triton or something, but they found out more about what had happened to him and his relationship and kind of the backstory, which I thought was fun. I definitely I think I straight up told the players, like, hey, you all know about the Soulmonger. Like, he's picturing, as soon as you free me from, or as soon as you defeat the High Priestess, my spirit will be able to ascend into the afterlife, whatever. And then I straight up told the players, hey, you guys know about the Soulmonger, and that spirits actually get sucked into this fucking ghost vacuum, and don't get to go to the afterlife. And they picked up on that, and then I was able to use that as a scene where. So my initial idea was, and this would also would have been goofy, it was to have him possess an item of Gillian's in order for her to carry her brother around, essentially in like a doggy bag, because the Soulmonger is still active, so his ghost is kind of in trouble, and that way he can possess something and kind of, I guess, hide from the Soulmonger's effects. Just hand waving why that's possible. But it has to be like a significant item to both Gillian and him. And their initial thought was like, well, use the bagpipes you just got, but that was a funny, really funny joke that hit. And then my plan was to possess the jar of lard that she had, because again, I kind of want to use those random ass trinkets I had the players roll for in the very early campaign, which didn't land very well and was more humorous than anything else, but it could have worked. And then I don't know, at some point someone suggested the flying monkey that he could possess, and I was picturing an item that he could possess, and then she uses the item as a magic item. But possessing the flying monkey is fucking hysterical, and it's one of those things where we definitely forget about these things unless they come into play. You know, I don't put them on the token battlefield or anything. I think that would just be too. I mean, they're a CR0. I basically treat them as like non-combatants, like you would have like those little pets in a MMORPG or something that just kind of hop around and follow. They don't really do anything, but just kind of look cute. That's kind of the equivalent of what these flying monkeys are. They just kind of are there for flavor purposes. Well, now she basically turned her flying monkey into a magic item, where he allows once per day he can grant Gillian, whenever she casts a spell, she can use the brother's magical effect to enhance it in an additional spell slot. So that was the magic item. But I love the fact that it's in a flying monkey now, and I hope I can A, remember that, and B, maybe do some funny like role playing things with that, and maybe the players can pick up on that too, because I feel like we definitely forget about the monkeys until somebody randomly mentions it, and then they're back again. So just kind of a funny, flavorful thing. But I like that a lot. That was a great example of like me working with the players on trying to create we got the end result that I wanted. We just didn't quite get there in the means that I expected us to, as I completely forgot about the monkeys too, so that was enjoyable. The players decided to skip this lower left door completely, and I think part of that was we were on a bit of a time crunch. We all knew we wanted to beat this area this evening, which is the kind of the unfortunate metagame aspect of D&D is like, and this happens a lot whenever we get back from the break and we know, okay, we've got, limited time here. We're adults. We're all getting up. We do it on Friday nights. We're not have to get up on Saturday, but we're all tired from the work week and everything else. So it just kind of happens where maybe the energy falls off a bit at the end, and we're trying to wrap things up and get to a stopping point. So I kind of felt like that might have been part of it, is the players like, okay, we know we had to go through this door and get to the caves and basically do the rest of the dungeon. So I feel like they skipped it basically out of a time crunch, whereas had this been in the earlier part of the dungeon or something, I feel like they would have done it, as they did almost every other door in this dungeon. Had they gone in here, they would have seen a glass statue with swirling water and the occasional kind of humanoid eyes almost formed out of the water. And had somebody broken the statue for whatever reason, then the water elemental would have poured out of it, and in Aquan pledged itself to the party for about an hour, which would have been the rest of the dungeon. So that would have been a really crazy reward to give the players. Have they just randomly, and without even knowing that they should or need to do this, break that statue, water elemental comes out of it, and is not only not hostile, but is actually friendly and thankful to the players, and essentially joins their party temporarily. It would have been a huge power boost, but they didn't do it, so sorry. I think that's a cool idea, though. That was in part of the actual written text. I did not come up with that. I cannot take credit. That was part of the total package, is there is a water elemental stuck in this statue that the party can free and add to their own party, so that was a really cool reward that unfortunately didn't get used. So maybe I'll use that in the future at some point, but what that ended up happening was it turned this Chul fight into a really huge slog for the players. They opened the door, they came in. Now this one was specifically not a surprise round. I've been doing all surprise rounds thus far. It's been every single fight has been, some kind of spirit or a ghost or mimic or something that has been able to attack with an ambush surprise round, which is a huge advantage for me. This one was not. They just saw a bunch of mutated lobster people, which are obviously using the Chul stat block, and it was just a straight up fight. But Chuls are pretty freaking strong. CR4, they have 2 pincer attacks with a +6 to hit. They grapple you, and if you're grappled as basically an extra attack on top of their 2 pincers, they can try to poison you. to try to paralyze you. I guess poison and paralyze, which I think I screwed that up one time because poisoning gives you disadvantage on checks. So I guess that's why it uses that language. It poisons you, so you have disadvantage on everything, and then you're also paralyzed. And then you can repeat the paralyze, but you have disadvantage. So a really cool creature that's easy to run, but also very effective. Almost too effective, because at one point, and I hope I did this right, I literally had their hands full. Like, I think I grappled every single party member, I guess 4 of them, with 2 pincers each, and at that point I don't think they can attack. I don't know if once somebody is grappled, like thematically I guess they could have still attacked with... Well, no, there's not even any advantage with grappling, is there? Like, I picture them... Yeah, it says the target is grappled if it's a large or smaller creature and the Chul doesn't have 2 other creatures grappled. So I guess somehow it could have still had somebody grappled and attacked somebody else while the first one is grappled. I don't know. I couldn't quite get this. So in my opinion, if they've got somebody grappled, they're literally in their pincers already. So he can't really attack. I would have said either he can auto attack and just squeeze you, which felt too powerful, or just have him toss the players around and do some damage that way, and then use the other hand to attack the other one. So I kind of actually got a little fucked up by being too successful with the hits and the grapple. At one point, Mannix blinded both Chuls with the Silverlight Dagger, and I had disadvantage on my multi-attack, and I think I hit with like all 4 attacks with disadvantage. Like, it was really nuts how the dice were helping me in this battle, and it made this fight really, really difficult for the players. They were really low on resources, low on spell slots. Pretty much everybody except, obviously, Theron still has Wild Shape, so we can still do that. I guess George gets all of his dice back. But I was just wrecking the play. I mean, they still won this fight. And, armor class 16, an average of 90-some hit points. Chuls are freaking monsters. So it was very painful. Mannix went down, crushed, got a crippled leg out of it. I think half his body is broken. Poor Mannix. Almost downed. I think Kaless and maybe one more. I can't remember the exact scenario, but it was very, very painful, and I don't believe the party had like any hit dice left to short rest with at this point. So it was very dicey going into the final battle. Which, and by the way, I just cut off this doorway here just for the purposes of time. If you're wondering why they didn't decide to go down this way, I literally just drew the dynamic lighting here because there was nothing in this bottom part of the cave. To the north, they had a choice of how to get to the boss room. They could either cross the rickety bridge or the flooded tunnel, and they decided to take the flooded tunnel. Shockingly, they all made their strength save except for Kaless, who got whooshed out of it, but then she made the strength save again and the dex check to come back in, so it just ended up being a little bit of damage. So this whole sequence ended up being not that painful for the players. The bridge one probably would have been more painful had they attempted that one. And then we got to the final boss fight, which, at this point, we're going pretty late. I want to wrap things up. I don't necessarily want to go too long. I do want to have it be an epic boss fight. The biggest bummer was the 2 melee fighters were basically able to close in before she even got a turn off. So, unfortunately, I kind of lost the initiative battle. Both Kaless and George were able to reach her. I guess I could have been a little more... about the fact that she was like up high and it would have been a lot harder, so maybe give them disadvantage or some way of climbing aboard this, because I tried to make it so this was like a 3D statue, that she was sitting on top of to give her more of an advantage, but I kind of forgot all that and then dropped it by the time the players ran up there and just annihilated her practically, because one of her moves was to do a big AoE frighten ability, which means they can't approach. Well, I did that, but they were already, George and Kaless were already in her face, so it kind of didn't even matter at that point because they were already there. I did catch Theron in the tentacle, but it could only catch like one person at a time. So out of the 3 melee fighters that rushed her, I stopped one of them, and the other 2 were basically able to close in. And obviously, Kaless with an assassinate can do just half this priest stat block. And spell users are very hard to use for D&D, at least for me, when they don't have a lot of things in front of them. And in this case, it was a single Chul that crawled out of there. And I definitely balanced this one. Again, the sake of time and everything, I was going to have 2 Chuls originally. They were going to climb out of this way. I still wanted them to be able to climb out of something, like out of the water. They weren't just going to hang around. So I had a round of one of them just climbing up here, but the players smartly, obviously, focused down the boss, and then it was just a matter of cleaning up the Chul fight at the end, which ended up being not that hard for them. So... on the one hand, yes, I am slightly disappointed that the boss fight was kind of anticlimactic. It really wasn't. It was one of the like least challenging fights in here. Ended up being. But on the other hand, I'm glad that we finished it up and it didn't last too terribly long. I don't think she even actually. I think I only got 2 rounds with her. I think, or was it 1 round? Jesus. Because I did her Voice of the Kraken ability. She got her 1 reaction. Actually, I might have only gotten 1 round. Reaction shot, and then I think she used her spiritual weapon 1 time. So it might have only been 1 round, and the Chul might have stuck around for like 2 rounds or something with everybody attacking. So, yeah, just not that painful. I probably could have set things up a little more epic, but again, at that point, if you really want an epic combat boss fight, you have to set aside the time to do it, and just the way the time lined up, I actually wanted to wrap things up at the end of this dungeon. So that was more important to me than actually setting the stage for a really devastatingly powerful boss fight. And frankly, the Chul fight was so painful that I still feel like the players felt the sting of this entire dungeon quite well, even if they were able to technically defeat the final boss a little easier than I thought. And notice how I didn't even employ the second Chul, because at that point, the priest went down so quick. I was like, if I just throw Chuls at them, it really feels even more anticlimactic now, because they're just kind of cleaning up the minions. Players in my party avoided the bridge and said the strong Minotaur carried everyone through the geyser tunnel. Had everyone roll strength to save the disadvantage. We still made them all. Nice. I didn't think about that. You can carry somebody through the tunnels. I almost didn't let Theron Bear go through the tunnels. That felt a little bit cheesy to me, but just because it looks like it is quite the squeeze. I probably could have been a little more firm about where all that bear can make it through, because some of these look like not exactly 10-foot wide openings. That bear is just squeezing its mass. What if the jar of lard was actually a jar of ectoplasm? It was dried up due to the soulmonger. That's why her brother's spirit can empower her. That would have been cool. Yep. I mean, again, I'm happy with the flying monkey thing. I think. I guess I could still use the jar of lard like that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm happy with the flying monkey thing. I think that's pretty funny. That the brother is now like her bound servant in a monkey form, and maybe can't really communicate, but is still the brother. So I like the way it turned out, and I like this whole dungeon. I think it worked out really well. I think it was very flavorful. I told the story I wanted to tell. It provided the first real lengthy challenge for the players, I think, in a long time. We've never really had a multi-session dungeon crawl like this before, to where there was no long resting. There was 3 short rests. They really had to mitigate and use all of their finite resources and weapon abilities and everything else. So I was very pleased with the balance level and the way things ended up. I don't remember how. Where are my stats? I think I had Gillian go down once and Mannix go down once in this dungeon. Which, nope, I had, that's right. Mannix went down twice in this dungeon alone. As you recall, he went down to the giant wasps at the entrance of the dungeon. He got a nasty scar. And then he went down again in the Chul fight. And then Gillian went down in the Glyph of Warding, just basically sustaining a bunch of trap damage, but actually made the con save, so she did not suffer a lingering injury. So that is the Typhoon Palace dungeon. I enjoyed this dungeon quite a bit. I would definitely recommend it. It's got a lot of fun traps, a lot of multiple paths, and it just fit really well with the personal story arc I wanted to tell, which at this point, Gillian's is basically completed. I'll need to remember to update it. Which one is that one? The Curse of the Bitch Queen. My Umberly is called the Bitch Queen. I think I'm putting them at the bottom. So that's the first player's personal quest that is completed, and we're actually going to the next player's personal quest, which is Theron's with Wormheart Mine. That's the next location. So at this point, I don't have any events or encounters. I don't have any ship encounters left. We've essentially completed, we completed the pirates. Any kind of ship encounters would just seem, I don't know, pointless, kind of. I don't want to get across that obviously going on a ship can be dangerous, but it was mainly dangerous because of the pirates. Like, there was nothing really, there's not a lot of roaming monsters, at least in my opinion, along the coast of Chult. And you get to that point where they're just long resting every single day, so any encounter, if you want it to be the least bit challenging, has to be like insanely huge, because the players are going to come at it fully rested, and then they're going to come out of it being able to fully rest. And I don't really want to throw anything at them that unless you like throw a freaking sea monster at them or something. It just doesn't seem like it's worth doing. So I think I'm just going to allow the again, what are you going to call it? That side trek that we have planned for next week with the guest DM. That is basically going to be our sole event for traveling. It's quite a, what do we got? 200, 150 miles. There's 100 miles, and there's 60 miles. So you're probably looking at, what did I say, 150, 100, 250, 300 miles. It's a 300-mile journey, which I forget what my notes were for traveling on a ship, but that's probably only like a couple days of travel. So I think that's okay if it's if there's just that one kind of event that occurs. So I don't have any other events planned. Otherwise, we are going to make it so, and I'm going to be planning far ahead because we've got no D&D this week. We've got our side trek next week, which will cover the journey, and then the week after that, we're going to land in Shilku Bay. So I'm going to be talking about Wormheart Mine and Hrakamar and all that stuff for probably a couple weeks to come, which is great because I could definitely use the prep time because I haven't even looked at that stuff yet. Wormheart Mine, the players know there's a dragon here. They've got Hugh Hackenstone. I actually need to update this again. I'm going to update it in session 5. And they know that Hrakamar is a dwarven forge that is connected to the mine, which is what the albino dwarf Musharib wants. So Hugh and Musharib will definitely want to accompany them to the mine, so they've got some NPCs ready. One thing I kind of was playing along with was that the players arrive in Shilku Bay and the dragon attacks them on the ship. I don't know what kind of territory a dragon would have. In fact, I think there are some encounters with the dragon, are there not? Because the dragon has its home in Wormheart Mine here, but this is still tens of miles. I mean, this is... If they land right here, that's 30 miles away. Would the dragon fly out that far? Maybe. Would it see a ship coming and just want to randomly attack the ship? Maybe it wants some treasure in there? Probably. I think that'd be really cool because the players have 2 ships. And that would be a neat little scenario. I mean, it's kind of difficult to run as a DM, but to have the players on the ship, have them have all their armaments, the ballistas and things, and create kind of that Game of Thrones moment of this fucking dragon coming in, just strafing with dragon fire, and actually attacking them. So I think that could be an interesting, fun scenario in a way to like tease kind of the boss fight of Wormheart Mine in a way. I'm trying to find... It's easier for me to look in the book than it is Roll20, but I guess it's on Roll20 also. Let's see, where is that? Chapter 2. We're still in Chapter 2. Good lord. The way this book is organized is not very helpful either. Like, every single location's in Chapter 2, and then finally Omu is 3, the Fane 4, and the actual Tomb of Annihilation in Chapter 5. This would be... Expedition begins... Random encounters. Because it's listed as a random encounter. What's her name? Tinder? Or is it under Red Dragon? Let's see. Might be under Red Dragon. Okay, maybe it's under Dragon, Red. There it is. Dragon, Red. Alright. So... Right now, the dragon has a chance of being encountered on the beach, in the mountains, and in the wasteland, with about an equal chance of it being in any one of those things. Beach, mountains, or wasteland, which I think the wasteland is like this valley of lost honor. Oops, I should have actually seen what the encounter looks like. So, let's look up dragon. If the dragon... Okay, here we go. If the characters are within 50 miles of Wormheart Mine, they see the young dragon known as Tzindalor, or Tinder, circling over that location. If they're farther away, they see her flying in the direction of the mine. The dragon ignores the characters unless they do something to attract her attention. Foolish text! That dragon's not going to ignore the characters. What fun is that? I agree, Lumpy, that could be an epic battle. So, yes, 50 miles. They are definitely within 50 miles. I need to flavor it where it's going to be like cloudy and stormy because I can't have them see the dragon from too far off. As we know from Game of Thrones, apparently you can fucking nail a dragon in the face from whatever distance away with a ballista. God damn it, that last season. I want to definitely create the more of the other episode of Game of Thrones in which the dragon goes down and actually like destroys all the ships. I guess it happened in a couple episodes. Mainly because the players have access to 2 ships, so I could even go as far as to destroy one of those ships. I don't know how balanced this is, and this would be definitely one of those situations where the dragon basically has no HP between you and me. It's just if it takes a number of hits, it will basically fly off and retreat. But I'll definitely like the concept of it just doing the strafing, like fire-breathing exercise constantly. In which case, I guess I'm not rolling for its recharge then, because I would say that, you know, a number of rounds goes by and it comes by again and just unleashes its fire breath. How powerful is a young red dragon? Let's see. It is a CR10. Woo, boy. That might be, well, other than, of course, the Steel Predator, which was not meant to be a winnable fight. This, other than that, will be the hardest foe the players have fought. 18 armor class, average hit points of 178. Gets 3 attacks, 1 with its bite, 2 with its claws, a plus 10 to hit. All kinds of damage. Average 20 damage with its bite, 13 damage with its claw. Fire breath, 30-foot cone, so it has to get within 30 feet to do its strafing run. Each creature in that area must make a DC 17 Dex saving throw. Now, how the hell, let me ask you all, how the hell do you calculate what all it can hit if it's literally, because, you know, we use Roll20 for so much, but Roll20 does not do 3-dimensional, it doesn't do elevation stuff. And a lot of this would have to be abstract. I mean, I could, you know, I'm going to use the ship map and I can have the dragon token on there maybe. But it's going to be a little tricky to work out the elevation difference and the fact that, like, how much can this dragon actually hit if it's flying 30 feet up? What does that equal? You know, this would be one of those things where this would be weirdly easier to do had we be doing Theater of the Mind, because I could just say, okay, it's going to hit you, you, and you, and then the players can't really do anything. Whereas if we do this, you know, in the actual battle map with a ship, then I have to be like, all right, well, I guess he's going to strafe and only hit this person because you're 20 feet away or whatever. You know, I don't want it to get too... I want it to be more epic and cinematic rather than a number-crunching fight. Which the way I do that is to not use the battle map. I wonder if the players would be okay with that. Because I know they always want to use it, and I always want to use a battle map too. But this way, it just seems like it would be easier and more epic to actually abstract some of this. Holy shit! It does 16d6 fire damage on its fire breath. That is 1 crispy Mannix right there. That is 2 crispy Mannixes, I think, and a side order of mashed potatoes. Oh my goodness! A DC 17 Dex saving throw. He's not making that save. Oh man. Now again, the players are long rested. They're fully prepared for this fight, and they will be able to rest afterwards. So I definitely don't feel bad about unleashing such a huge battle upon them. And as I mentioned, there's no way they can kill the dragon in this situation. If somebody does something like George attempts to like Vine Whip and drag it down, I think he will... I would overrule that from a DM standpoint. Like, if you try to Vine Whip a flying dragon, you are not able to bring it down. Instead, it will be like a fucking... I mean, it'd be like lassoing a charging... What am I trying to come up with? Some kind of any flying creature, and you're just attached to it, and you just go. Like, you just get dragged up into the air, which that could be epic also. Have George sit there and just go up to the dragon. Oh, man. I'm really liking the idea of this fight. I just hope I can pull it off, because it's kind of a logistical nightmare for DMs to do. It can fly 80 feet a turn, which is huge. So it can definitely fly in, do its fire breath, and fly out quite a big distance. The only options the players really have are to fire those ballista shots. And hopefully they can make things more interesting, and I can make things more interesting rather than just an exchange blows of like, okay, it comes down, breathes fire. I'll probably do things like when it first breathes the fire, it actually starts fires. so the players will have to actively like use their actions to help put out the fire. And obviously the few like NPCs running around will get freaking toasty too. All the no name red shirts are going down. Um, Very possibly could lose one of the ships here. I think this could be a really fun fight. We measure damage with Manixes. We sure do. Be careful. It's within 30 feet for its breath, George's whip sword. But see, I know, Lumpy, that's what I was just talking about. I guess chat's catching up. Yeah, I would picture him having to be dragged along. I would straight up overrule that. If he gets his vine sword in there and drags it down, he's not. I did let him drag down the wyvern, which I guess a dragon is technically the same size. You know, I think I actually used a strength check, didn't I? I think I had it be a strength. I think that ended up being a strength contest. And God, if I leave it up to dice, I'd be really nervous about him bringing that dragon down. That would be devastating. That would totally take out the coolness of this fight. So I would argue that I would probably do the bullshit DM move of saying, nope, you do grapple it, but it just keeps flying and you just keep getting dragged along with it, and hopefully the players will enjoy that and run with it, because I think bringing it down would be devastating. And frankly, or would it? Maybe that would be more enjoyable, because then the dragon sits down there and just fucking kills people, right? It gets 3 attacks, it does an insane amount of damage, and it has as many hit points as I need it to have. 8 armor class of 18. It would probably just keep breathing fire. I don't know. Maybe that would change the dynamic of the fight. I'd have to think about that. You plop a CR10 creature right there, and all of a sudden it can do all of its things. Well, now I am questioning everything. But I will probably, if they bring it down, I'll probably have to use the actual battle map. But I think whenever the ships arrive at Shilku Bay, here's the other thing too. I could have the dragon attack whatever ship the players aren't on, and then it gets. No, that's not as fun. They definitely want them attacking the one the players are on. I assume they've got 2 ships. They've just got I think they're on the bigger pirate ship, the Sturge, and they just have the Brazen Pegasus with them, and they'll have to determine how they want to split the party, if at all. But the dragon's idea is she just sees these ships arrive in the bay and basically gets. It's her territory. She's a territorial, wants to sink them, maybe collect the treasure afterwards, but mainly just keep people away from her lair. But when she realizes that these players are able to kind of fight back, and she'll take enough damage to retreat, and they'll just see her going straight north, which the players, which she'll, of course, regenerate by the time the players reach the mine. But I think that could be a really enjoyable encounter, to where I don't know if I need to have any other encounters between the bay and the mine. It's pretty close. I mean, that is 20 miles once they land, which, 20 miles of choke can still be dangerous, but at this point I kind of handweigh those distances, so I'm probably okay with them after this dragon fight resting up and then just approaching the mine and getting to the mine without necessarily any encounters in there, because I don't think I'll allow any long resting in the mine or the tunnel that leads to Hrakamar or Hrakamar itself, unless they find an unusually safe location to go in there. So after that, it'll be the mine and Hrakamar, which, by the way, players will level up to 6 before all this. So after the events of Jahaka Anchorage and the Typhoon Palace, and I guess Firefinger too. Were they level 5 for Firefinger? I don't even remember. Actually, I can tell you if they were. I've got the notes here. They were level 5 for, in fact, for the Heart of Ubtao, for Firefinger, for all of the pirate stuff, Jahaka Anchorage, and the Typhoon Palace. So they've been level 5 for a long ass time. So they will be getting to 6 at the start of whatever our next session is. Although it may be after our one. It may actually be not until like 2 weeks from now, because the fact that Reese and Rochelle won't actually be here to level up, so that'd be kind of weird. Well, I guess they could still level up because they're not in the side trek either. Anyway, they'll be level 6 for that encounter. And then my plan is, I think, after Wormheart Mine and Hrakamar, I will level them up to 7. Actually need a different Google Doc open, don't I? It's my DM notes. It's kind of weird because they kind of get fast tracked now in the like mid range. They were low levels for a long time, but level 6 for Wormheart and Hrakamar, and then it's I think when they reach Omu, I don't know where the exact timing is, but somewhere around the time they reach Omu, they'll get to 7. And then there'll be 7 for all of Omu, which is hopefully enough sessions to make it feel like a good amount. And then once they get to the Fane of the Night Serpent, that'll be level 8. And then that should be timing to get them to level 9 for the Tomb of Annihilation, which seems kind of crazy because then they're like basically leveling up. It just feels like they're leveling up a lot quicker than they were before. But I'm hoping these areas are so big that they will still take like a bunch of sessions and still feel like we're not fast-tracking them too much just to get to a proper level for the Tomb of Annihilation. It's just the way this adventure's been paced. Like everything, all of this stuff up here is all low-level Tier 1 stuff. And I'm trying to model this side stuff, and then Omu as the Tier 2, and then the actual Tomb of Annihilation is kind of the beginning of Tier 3. So hopefully I've paced that well enough. Let's look at the mine for a second. We've got some time, although like I said, I will be planning out the mine and Hrakamar for quite a while for the next couple of weeks, because at this point we won't even be getting to Wormheart Mine for the next 2 weeks, I believe. So let's archive Typhoon Palace. We're done with it. Don't really need a lot of these jungle maps anymore, but I'm going to keep them on here just in case. I need to restore Wormheart Mine, which is where? A lot of maps. Wormheart Mine. Doesn't that start with a W? Looking at the wrong one here. Oh, it's under these. Okay. Wormheart Mine. There we go. Alright. This is a small but interestingly designed dungeon from what I can recall. Why is restrict movement not on? I always need to check that now. Let's turn advanced fog of war off. Dynamic lighting on. Does not have global illumination. Okay. I think it's the first time loading this map. It's a cool map. Full of kobolds, which is very, very, very low level creatures, and this one and Hrakamar might be a little on the easy side, because I think this is included in the Tier 1. You know what I could do is replace some of these. So what I'm thinking I might have to do here is scale this dungeon up, because I think it's included in that Tier 1 Chapter 2 exploration thing, which means it's designed for players of 1 through either 4 or 1 through 5. I don't even know where those notes are. It's somewhere. I think it might have been chapter. Let's see. Starting the adventure, where it dictated what level was each zone. Does anyone recall that? Let's see. Welcome to Chult. Nope. That's just the picture. Where was that? Introduction? I think this might be it. Looking for a little. There we go. The Land of Chult. It's 1st through 6th level. So all of those, everything in Chapter 2 is designed for 1st through 6th level. But so 6th level might be okay. In fact, Omu is actually 5th to 8th. 6th level might be okay, but you're definitely on the higher end of what these things are scaled for. And obviously the dragon is a huge special boss fight. But I can't imagine just a handful of kobolds is going to be the least bit interesting to fight. I know the Tomb of Beasts added more kobolds, or slash, whatever that, the Tyranny of Dragons, I think added new kobolds, so I may look at that, because I don't see these being very interesting to fight. Wormheart Mine. Zindalore has amassed a following of kobolds who call her Tinder. She occasionally leaves to hunt, but spends most of her time sleeping at the bottom of the mine. The kobolds rig their shared lair with numerous traps. Many parts of the mine still show signs of the dwarves' battle against Tinder, including the scattered, charred bones of those who died, which I'm flavoring as that is Hugh's previous expedition into the mine. So Hugh was literally bought the rights to this mine, went in there with an expedition, didn't know there was a dragon in there, found the dragon, had to haul ass out of there, lost his arm, and his entire crew was there. So he wants to go back and claim this mine with the help of Theron and that crew. Ore carts are left. The cart track circling the main shaft is quite steep. The ore carts are built so the downhill end is higher than the uphill end. This allows them to sit level on the sloping track, but they look odd on level ground. Heavy draw rope and harness are hooked to the back of each cart so the trained dinosaur could pull the heavy load up the track. Carts can be shunted on the side passages. Tracks are to bypass on the side and run straight through to the bottom. Some cars' brakes are in better condition than others. If a brake fails, the cart races out of control, around the pit until it smashes into the barrier at the bottom of the track. Everyone in the cart takes 1d6 bludgeoning damage per 20 vertical feet the cart descended. Those who bail out before the cart hits takes damage based on how far the cart descended before they jumped. Each creature must also spend a DC 10 dex saving throw or tumble over the edge of the track and plunge to the bottom of the shaft. 250 feet. Whoa. So the actual entrance is up here, which I think the way this map is designed, yeah, has light sources out, which I like the way this is done. So it's got light sources. I guess it's got some lanterns in here too. So it's got like the daylight streaming in. So they literally come in here and they just see these tracks everywhere. I think is there a cart token? Is that what was used here? Yeah, here we go. Optional mine cart token. So this is kind of a cool thing that that Roll20 did, where you can take the token and then move it along the tracks. You wouldn't be able to turn it very well if people were on it because it would turn those tokens as well. So it might not look awkwardly, and it's going to not, unfortunately, snap to the grid maybe as good as it can, but I could actually use that to ferry players along the cart, because Lord knows, you see a cart and a mine track, man, you want to jump on that. I like that idea. That could be a lot of fun. Let's see, there's an office in one. Nothing really in there. Supply shed, also nothing in there. There's the ore cart. Doesn't have good brakes. Intelligence check, so Manix will find the brakes are a little rusty. Inside the mine, the cave opens into an enormous 250-foot deep pit. The walkway is fundamentally solid. Tracks for the ore cart descend around the walls of the pit in a clockwise fashion. Enough daylight filters through the mine opening to create dim illumination to the bottom of the shaft. The kobolds living in the mine believe correctly that this upper level is haunted by dwarven spirits. That doesn't work, because I've flavored that the soulmongers takes all spirits. Do I use the spirits, or do I use... I can use undead, but only if they're like the physical body undead and not the spirit undead. I may have to change those, unless I flavor yet another location that is allowed to have spirits. The kobolds avoid the upper level of the mine except when they must exit or enter. They use the wooden bridge exclusively and never walk along the cart track past Area 05. So this is the haunted area. So they use this walkway in the middle exclusively, which is apparently 50 feet higher. Okay. Well, that's a big difference. If the player is that blocked off? No, it's not. So the players may see these guys up here, but these are 50 feet up in the air, so they would not... The kobolds would see the players well before the players see the kobolds. A dozen or more charred skeletons out of the chamber. One dwarf skeleton is more recent than the others, and not charred. This is a member of Hugh Hackenstone's expedition. 6 specters haunt the forge, 3 in each chamber. One skeleton wears a mithril breastplate. I may have to change the specters. I like the idea of there being undead over here, but I don't know I could probably just flavor it as they're tied to this location for whatever reason. I'll have to look at that, but I like the undead there. There's a ledge. 2 Cobalt Inventors. Those don't look very powerful. It's a really neat picture, though. What do you got? Whoa. Code uses one of the following options. Roll a d8 or choose one. What can use? Each one, no more than once per day. Acid, Alchemist's Fire, Basket of Centipedes. Throws a small basket with a 5-foot square within 20 feet of a swarm of insects. With 11 hit points, emerges from the basket and rolls initiative. Huh. Scorpion on a stick. Makes a melee attack with a scorpion tied to the end of a 5-foot-long pole. That's fucking funny. These seem like really fun enemies for low-level PCs. Yeah, the CR14. My PCs are not low-level at all. So, Charred Dwarf Skeletons. That could be good. Use like a skeleton stat block, but slightly different. I think what I'm mainly... I like the design of this dungeon and the idea behind it, but I think I'm going to have to scale everything up into more... because it's so short, so it needs to have each fight be more punctuating. So I think I'm going to have to scale up these enemies, maybe a bigger stat block for kobolds, and yeah, a more powerful thing for specters. I have, let's see, the Tomb of Beasts from Kobold Press, which I think has some different kobolds in there. I think they're just the ones from Tyranny of Dragons. Let's see, FGHIJKOB. Kobold Alchemist is a CR2. 15 armor class, 44 hit points, and is like the Inventor, but can throw out explosive flasks. That's pretty cool. There's also a Kobold Trapsmith, who's a CR1, can lay down a bunch of traps, and a Kobold Chieftain, who's a CR4. Which that's pretty solid. 17 hit points, 17 armor class, 82 hit points. Jesus, that's a chul. Makes 2 attacks. Wow, that is a boss. Alright. So I may do something like that and upgrade or replace some of these kobolds to make them a bit more interesting. Is this the basic kobolds? Yeah, because they're like, these are level 1 creatures. So shitty. So maybe leave a couple of kobolds as the low level, but definitely have a few that are more interesting, like the Alchemist, the Inventor, and the Trapsmith. Oh shoot, did I delete that? Warm Heart Mine? I did. So probably upgrade that ledge up here. The nursery. Bunch of eggs. That's right. Murder the kobolds and their young. A rolling stone trap. Classic Indiana Jones in 6C. A tripwire stretches across the mouth of the tunnel where the lower passage joins the cart track. If the tripwire is missed, each character who passes through the tunnel mouth has a 50% chance to trip it and trigger 2 mechanisms. The first mechanism is a spring-loaded wooden contraption resembling a claw that swings out from the wall of the mine shaft upslope from this tunnel to snap across the tunnel mouth. Whoever triggered the trap must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take bludgeoning damage. 1 round later, the second mechanism releases a 5-foot diameter stone sphere that drops into the cave on T and rolls into the wooden claw across the tunnel mouth. This is like fucking Mousetrap. Or Fireball Island. Which is demolished by the sphere's impact, but not before diverting the sphere onto the cart tracks. Oh. The sphere careens down the tracks until it reaches Area 11, where it derails and smashes into the Urd's living quarters. Everyone in the sphere's path must succeed on a DC Dex 13 saving throw, or take 40-10 bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone. Instead of being hit by the sphere, a character who fails the saving throw can opt to leap off the tracks and fall to the bottom of the shaft, which seems more deadly unless you have like one of those flying balloon parachutes or something. So the tripwire is here. Is that the idea? What does the actual map look like? Lord, I can't see that. I really like the idea of the classic. If you ever gone on the Indiana Jones ride in Disneyland and maybe Disney World too, it has a similar effect, which is really fun. Let's see, Warm Heart Mine. I don't see any tripwire. It doesn't even have it on the map here. So a tripwire stretches across the mouth of the tunnel where the lower passage joins. So it is here. So that's the tripwire. Spotted with a successful 13 wisdom perception check. It doesn't say passive perception. It says you have to be checking it. Has a 50% chance to trip it, whoever walks through, and triggers a spring-loaded claw that swings out from the wall of the mine shaft. This is very strangely worded. Contraption with a claw that swings out from the wall of the mine shaft upslope to snap across the tunnel mouth. So somehow, the idea is, and I get the idea, you trigger this, the boulder comes barreling down this direction, and then I guess the claw stops it from going off into the emptiness here, and instead goes along the cart track. So that claw has to catch it, and it continues down here. The weird thing is, the players would normally hit this maybe coming across this way, so most of them would be like up here, I would think. It'd be more fun if they were below and had to deal with that, which they would have to come... I guess if they come around this way. So they take the right path, and they go north, and then they're all lined up right here. That would be way more enjoyable, because then you trip it, the thing comes down, and they have to run like hell. In fact, I don't think there's any running allowed. It's just a dexterity saving throw. Or they take damage, or they can run out of the way. Jump out of the way. Interesting. Let's see. 07. Upper landing. 2 kobolds stand near some old crates. One kobold falls. The other flees down the stairs to warn its kin in area 08. So the kobolds will be aware of the players. That's an advantage they'll have. They'll be able to do shit. So is level 2 on here as well? Is that the idea? Or is these separate maps? There it is. Okay. And it just keeps circling downward, which is a difficult thing to do because Roll20 does not do elevation very well. So this is 250 feet here, which is even to the middle part of here. But then this starts going down to where you're up here, you're 200 feet, and by the time you're here, you're 175. So you are going down, 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 which is a really difficult thing to pull off and visualize. And then by the time you make it down here... So does this cart right here disappear underneath? Is that the idea? It has to, because it keeps going down underneath. So this must be a ledge that overlooks this tunnel that goes beneath. Yeah, because there's the ledge right there. Okay. Or you can take the stairs and go down into the kobold camp here. And they've got more traps set up. This could be really fun with the way the traps are done. But I definitely just scale up the kobolds in general. And have an actual like intelligent enemy trying to fend off invaders. God, somebody taking the ore cart down would be hysterical. And then they go all the way down. It continues down this way. Stops. And the red dragon's actually quite a bit down here in its own layer. That's cool. And then this is the actual tunnel to Hrakamar. If you take that path. I think it defaults down to the bottom, I would assume. Yeah, dramatically ask who's opening treasure chests. Other players should be paranoid now and just stab all the chests. Just to be safe. Cool. I am looking forward to Wormheart Mine. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'll do some more environmental storytelling and obviously have Hugh talk about what he knows. I don't know if he probably know about the kobolds here yet. Maybe they came afterwards to worship the dragon. It was just the dragon before. But they'll definitely be able to find the remains. This is really cool. You can see in the bottom shaft. But I like finding like the remains of that battle, and then their goal will be to kill the dragon, avenge Hugh's arm, I guess, claim the mine, and then they can just go from here straight to Hrakamar. Which once they clear out the mine, I guess I could allow them to long rest, and then go to Hrakamar. And then that will be the next dungeon. And I kind of Theron's quest part 2 also is just another guide's quest. But completing Wormheart Mine would basically complete Theron's quest. Alright, I think that will do it for this week's Crafting Annihilation. As I mentioned previously, no D&D this week, although I will probably try to be around on Friday night to be streaming something. Next week is a special side trek with guest DM of my wife, running our campaign, but it's going to be kind of a filler episode. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. And it will basically just designed to get us from it's kind of the in-between events between the Typhoon Palace and Wormheart Mine. And the week after that will be our, hopefully, regular session with the full crew back in place, able to tackle that Red Dragon battle. So I'll have several weeks of Crafting Annihilation to prep and do all that with. Thank you all for joining me, and I will be around tomorrow for some streaming, and D&D will resume next week.